middle of Central Anatolia, in the heart of Turkey, is an extraordinary and captivating landscape, Cappadocia. A wonderful fairy tale land formed of tough stone, a land of fairy chimneys in which tradition and adventure abound. We begin our journey in Ürgüp, a tourist centre at the foot of a hill that is perforated with ancient cave dwellings. This area has been inhabited for many centuries, and a splendid fortress was once located on a rock on which the tomb of a Seljuk sultan was built. They were eventful times. Various Seljuk sultans struggled for power and Mongols invaded the country. Ürgüp was a perfect hiding place. Sultan Rukneddin Kilikaslan fell into dishonor and was subsequently persecuted by his brother. Here, he was able to hide from his enemies. Ürgüp is the gateway into this wonderful region, a gentle transition from our modern world into a miraculous land of a former age. Within its center are ancient inns, baths and wells that date back to Seljuk and Ottoman times. New hotel complexes have been built on the outskirts of the town. In contrast to the shop windows of jewelers and carpet retailers is the poverty of the town's humbler inhabitants who've lived here for decades and who are far from interested in modern tourism. The colourful meadows on the slopes and in the valleys are in picturesque contrast to the mainly arid appearance of the tuff formations of Central Anatolia. In the nearby village of Kavusin are the remains of several ancient buildings, the result of a great landslide in 1963. At that time, the entire mountain slope contained numerous buildings and caves of tough stone. A new village was built at the bottom of the valley. Now it's just a fine view. This picturesque scene is a reminder of a major catastrophe caused by Mother Nature. The new town was built at the foot of the hill, but it's not as romantic as its predecessor. Prior to the arrival of settlers, monks carved out the soft, tough rock and created what have become famous rock churches. The rock basilica of Holy Johannes has been badly damaged by erosion and sections of its external walls have collapsed. Iron stairways lead to various rooms. Unfortunately, it's only a matter of time until the remaining tough walls also collapse. The whole of Cappadocia is a spectacular natural landscape. 5 million years ago, two volcanoes broke apart and spewed their fiery lava and ash clouds into the air above this region. The glowing hot lava filled the valleys between the hills and formed a plateau. The ejected material from the fire-spewing mountains gradually cooled. Frost, heat, wind and rain have over millions of years shaped the soft, tough rock into a bizarre, natural landscape. Devrent Vadisi was named according to the colour of its soil, the Pink Valley, an uninhabited valley with cave dwellings and rock churches. Its scenic splendour is quite unique. The small tough cones are situated close to each other, hundreds of them. The narrow confines of this place were too small for settlements. The first inhabitants of this region believed that the rocks were chimneys, which belonged to fairies who lived beneath the Earth's surface. A fantasy indeed. Thus, Cappadocia is still known as the land of the fairy chimneys, a fitting name for this amazing landscape. Cappadocia is one of the most fascinating landscapes in Turkey. It's also the location of the Zelve Valley that's been transformed into an open-air museum, and one of the caves features a mill and millstone, a definite sign of life hidden amid this remote area. A strange world of volcanic tuff that was once the habitat of early Christian monks and their followers. The soft tuff facilitated the digging of caves in which their creators lived and worked, and as the centuries ticked by, even churches were built. It was here that they lived, worked and prayed, protected from the cold of winter and from the heat of the sun in summer. Life in early Christian communities differed from present church doctrine. Each person was responsible for their own religious way of life. The church rooms were not only sacred buildings, but also a meeting place, a place in which to discuss daily life. Hundreds of caves were dug into the steep walls of the tough rock. From outside, only small openings are visible, and they were easily closed shut. Both Christians and Muslims lived peacefully here until 1923. At that time, a major transformation of the population took place, and the Christians were forced to leave the valley. The early Christians used communal life as a form of protection, as they were constantly threatened by persecution from the Roman Empire. Monks and farmers lived here, and rooms and equipment were added as and when required. A small mosque with a striking minaret is an indication of recent history and of the peaceful coexistence of various religions. In 1950, the village was evacuated by the government and its inhabitants were settled elsewhere. It had become too dangerous to live here. But its legacy lives on. The most practical way in which to explore this area is on horseback. Pasabagi, the Valley of Monks, also contains a large variety of fairy chimneys and tough cones. But in contrast to Devrent Vadisi in this region of Cappadocia, there are also traces of human habitation. Modern tourism brings those who explore this bizarre primeval landscape by way of mountain bike and walking tours. The Valley of Monks is known for some of the largest and most beautiful fairy chimneys in Cappadocia. and after a short time, the first stone giants come into view. Most who come here are attracted by an architecturally remarkable hermitage located within the tuff, the St. Simeon's Cone. In addition to its remoteness, the early Christians also favoured this as a place in which to hide from their enemies. In the 3rd and 4th centuries, the Christians had many enemies. Persians, Romans, Arabs, and even Mongols persecuted the first Christians of Central Anatolia. Avanos, the city on the Red River, originated from the settlement of a Seljuk nomad tribe. Around 3/4 of the city's inhabitants earn their living from pottery, and some of their workshops are located in a number of caves. Since ancient times, the red clay of the river valley has been used for the production of pottery, in much demand by visiting tourists. With the introduction of refrigeration and water pipes, the original practical purpose of the pottery became redundant. Today it's produced for the tourists who come here. Traditional rug making and viniculture still take place here. The longest river in Turkey divides the town into the Old Town in the north that extends above a slope with a mosque and narrow alleys, and the large New Town. Almost everywhere are potters and merchants offering their goods for sale, a colourful sight, and paradise for those who appreciate pottery. Contemporary artists have also settled in Avanos. They take good advantage of the town's popularity. Uchisar is a huge complex of well-sheltered rock caves, most of which have collapsed due to erosion. Opinions differ with regard to the original nature of this complex. Was it a caravanserai, or a military base, or even a monastic centre? Due to its size, it appears to have been a religious settlement, perhaps a branch of the Bektas order, to whom the Christian inhabitants provided one of their churches as a mosque, either voluntarily or by force. The location was ideal, with low slopes flanked by a wide valley and large meadows. The ideal location for a large settlement. Rose Valley, also known as Devrent Vadisi, has seen little human habitation. However, in the 10th century, it served as a refuge for monks. They dug caves into the soft, tough stone, and in the sheltered green valley grew fruit and vegetables. Both solitude and asceticism were experienced by those who chose to live in this tiny valley, as most preferred the larger settlements that were to be found in the region's other valleys. These scant yet fascinating and silent surroundings make it easy to understand why the people who lived here chose this place. It was safe, secluded, and tranquil. They built their cave dwellings and rock churches in places that are almost inaccessible. They could only be reached by ladder that could quickly be withdrawn. On the edge of the valley in the late afternoon, people gather to enjoy the fascinating sunset. Sufism is common in Cappadocia, and dancing dervishes practice their mystic ritual here. Chosen believers whirl around and transport themselves into an ecstatic, trance-like condition in order to receive divine favor. The dervishes are dressed in white and continuously rotate around the axis of their bodies to repetitive music until they fall into a trance. Their heads are covered by felt hats that are bent to the right. Their souls rise to heaven and return while they dance. The northernmost town of our journey is named after Haji Bektas. In the 13th century, the mystic and philosopher Haji Bektas came here from Persia and founded the Bektashi dervish order. His ideas came from the Shiite branch of Islam that was based on the belief of natural harmony. The Haji Bektas Museum is the house of the founder, a monastery complex with yards, water basins, dining hall, meeting halls, a mosque, and visitor residence. It was here that Haji Bektas resided. He preached a variation of Islam with equal status given to men and women and the value of human kindness, tolerance, and divine love. The mausoleum in the third courtyard is particularly impressive. A mausoleum and sanctuary of Seljuk design. Around the prayer hall, a high-ceilinged room decorated with wall paintings and a large chandelier beneath a cupola, are various grave chambers. Here lies the remains of Haji Bektas and various other leaders of the order. Their sarcophaguses are covered with green blankets and wall plaques describe religious history. In the middle of this extraordinary natural landscape are age-old stories that have been cut into the tough stone, a symbiosis of both culture and nature. As in the vicinity of Guzelyurt. The Johannes Church is, in common with most Cappadocian churches, quite subtle to say the least. Only its entrance and a small window indicate the building within. The lower sacred room has a ground plan of a cross and is adorned with frescoes that were painted red directly onto the rock. Yet upon entering the two-aisled church, there's an altogether different impression. The walls of the upper church are covered with frescoes that have been restored. The motifs feature the biblical cycle of the well-known story of Jesus. Goreme is one of the oldest settlements in this area. a unique harmony of geologic form and man-made buildings. The entire town has been built in and around the rocks. For the older village inhabitants, the way of life here has hardly changed, although tourism has inevitably left its mark. From where does its name originate? When the Christians sought shelter in the Goreme Valley from the hostilities of the Arabs, they named the valley Goreme, which means, "You can't see me." When the town within the strange rock formations was discovered by tourism, its infrastructure was transformed. But many aspects have remained the same. Wool is coloured by hand and worked on old hand looms. Here everybody has time, a lot of time. In the centre of the town is a large rock, formerly a cave, but erosion destroyed it, and today it's the town's landmark. But Goreme has a new attraction, a remarkable cave hotel. A luxurious building that is located in the old but renovated rooms within the rock. There's a reception area, entrance hall, dining room and cave rooms, much of which is of Italian design, as well as local antiques. The terrace features a breathtaking view of the town that looks like the movie set of a fantastic film. As well as the furniture of the mainly circular rooms, there's a swimming pool that's situated in a courtyard, but which then disappears into the rock and becomes a spa. Almost everywhere, there's a reminder of the past. In this hotel, modern comforts and tradition make for a successful partnership. Strange-looking towers wherever one turns, a fascinating sight. Here, nature has created so many varied shapes which differ from valley to valley. Close to the town of Goreme is yet another treasure of religious art, the tiny El Nazar Church. Its well-preserved frescoes feature various Bible stories, as well as images of Emperor Constantine and his mother Helena. In 1991, Goreme had been the starting point for the region's balloon safaris. At first, only a handful of balloons flew here, but today they're an increasingly popular attraction. A bird's eye view by hot air balloon. Our journey begins early in the morning. An armada of gently rocking baskets floats above the fairy tale landscape just after sunrise. They ascend to 800 meters and also venture into the region's valleys. The pilots are very skillful, well versed in the local air currents. Washed out tough stone, rock shaped by the elements, sharp needles and cones, a record of Earth's history. The hot air balloons float above canyons and pass wooded hillsides. There's no sound except for the hissing of the gas. Balloon safaris provide a good insight into what lies below. From here, the scenery and its strange rock formations look even more unreal. A veritable miracle of nature. Each journey is an adventure that touches the very soul. How different everything looks from above. This spectacular natural landscape, the bizarre rock formations, all created by the elements. A surreal landscape that is subject to constant change due to the extreme climate of the Turkish highlands. After about an hour, the balloons land and we set foot back on Earth. A marvelous experience. Now a toast to a successful balloon safari. The Goreme Valley is very popular. Here, the beauty and silence of nature is often neglected by tourists. The valley's main attraction is its open-air museum that features a large number of rock-built monasteries and churches. In the 4th century, a Greek Orthodox place of pilgrimage developed here under the influence of Byzantine monks. And various priests, hermits and nuns founded a number of monasteries. Following the invasion of the Ottomans, the caves once again served as a place of refuge, this time for Christians. Around 350 rock churches were created. Many low and narrow corridors lead into the rock, in which there are well-camouflaged entrances to hidden churches. The famous El Mali church originated in the 11th century, with 9 cupolas, 4 columns, and the ground plan of a Greek Orthodox cross. Well-preserved frescoes were applied directly onto the rock walls with a red dye. The St. Barbara Chapel is probably the most interesting, but at the same time most confusing church in the museum. In addition to well-known saints, it also features geometric patterns and fabulous beings. Today, hundreds of visitors come from all over the world each day to view the wonderful buildings and frescoes in the rock churches. The remarkable way of life that took place here amid the tough landscape has been acknowledged by UNESCO, who've appointed it as a World Heritage Site. Narrow and steep steps that were carved into the rock lead up to many small caves in which the monks spent their humble lives. The creation of the caves was not always an easy task for the monks. Each church was dug in the traditional way into the tuff. At the highest point of this sheltered valley is Karanik Church. The walls of its large porch are mainly in ruins. Therefore, the paintings on its rear walls are visible from afar. The small church is well protected within the tuff, and the wall paintings are vivid, their colours fresh-looking. The biblical scenes on the walls are magnificent. The ascetic dream of the Cappadocian monks has indeed survived here. Close by is the oldest church in the Goreme Valley, Pottery Church, the largest rock church in the region. Following their visit to the open-air museum, visitors return to their buses, but not until they've bought plenty of souvenirs and ice cream. The souvenir and ice cream sellers have been waiting for this. They sell their goods stylishly, and the filling of an ice cream cone is performed with great panache. Sword Valley, Devrent Vadisi, also once contained human settlements, but today it's grazing for horses that pervade the scene, much to the surprise of visitors. Surrounded by blossoming meadows are the remains of several cave dwellings, ancient monk settlements of the early Christian inhabitants of Guzelyurt. The soft, tough stone served as ideal building material. The living rooms, churches, and chapels of the monks were carved directly into the rock. In the pink-coloured valley, many of the rocks have not been worked by human hand. The green meadows and plain rocks form a harmonic whole and create a picturesque scene. Here, traces of Cappadocian history blend with the wild charm of the landscape. Culture and nature blend together as one. Between Ürgüp and Nevşehir is Uchisar. From here there's a wonderful view of the narrow Dove Valley that leads to Ürgüp. No wonder that these slopes were chosen as an ideal building location. There's much fine architecture here. Uchisar is famous for its castle mountain. This fortress is a complex of two huge rocks that were carved out to provide shelter. The steep slopes below contain several tough buildings that replace the original cave dwellings that were located on the opposite side. Most of the local people earn their living from agriculture, yet tourism plays an increasingly important role due to the number of tourists who come here. Off the main tourist trail is the original Cappadocia, a region that has remained unchanged for hundreds of years. It was the inhabitants of Uchisar who first began to hire out rooms to the first few tourists who came here. Rug making still takes place as in many other villages. And the facades indicate yet another traditional skill. The fortress climb is a wonderful experience. On steep steps that have been cut into the stone, we mount the slope, and vantage points made of steel provide a welcome break. In former times, there were corridors in the rock through which it was possible to climb, but they've since collapsed. The laborious climb is worth the breathtaking view. The Turkish people adore music and dance. They have rhythm in their blood. Traditional dances progress in a circle that emphasizes harmony. Each region in Turkey has its own traditional dances and costumes. Men and women often wear black cloth with a silver border. Naturally, the belly dance is featured in every show. The circling movement of the hips requires remarkable control of the muscles. Most of the dances feature daily life, from work to searching for a wife. Women often wear veils and large trousers influenced by Ottoman tradition. The men dance acrobatically. When the women perform their sensual veil dance, onlookers sense the deep roots of the country's history. Next follows a demonstration of pure temperament. Inner strength is displayed without limit, and the audience is enthralled. Uchisar is a village that was constructed around a fortress rock. The fortress served as both settlement and military base. The mosque in the center of the village lies protected below a fortress that once served as a refuge for early Christians. Everything here is reminiscent of bygone times. The facades of old stone buildings are decorated with stone carvings and wooden balconies. Nostalgia in every corner, and collectors of antiques are fascinated by the many works of art that are to be found here. This mountain fortress can no longer be mounted from within the rock. Mustafapasa lies south of Ürgüp, a small village with a colourful history. The architecture of its buildings is totally different to that normally to be found in this region. Several Greeks once settled here and had fine houses built. Traces are to be seen everywhere. Everything indicates that Mustafapasa was one of the most important cities in Byzantine and Ottoman times. For centuries, Christians and Muslims lived peacefully side by side, right up to the migratory exchange of the population at the end of the Greek-Turkish War in 1924. A sad chapter in this region's history that has not yet been closed. The old two-story Greek monastery of the former Sinassos town has been transformed into a tastefully designed hotel and restaurant. The memory of the population's exodus is slowly fading. The descendants of the displaced families often visit the city. A kilometre outside the town is St. Basilios Church, a rock church that dates back to the 19th century and which features a collection of splendid frescoes. The old Helena Church in the village is now a museum. It also serves as a symbol of reconciliation. Soganli Valley, a wide valley that is known for its fine scenery and church buildings. It is believed that the Arabs penetrated no further than here. Soganli Valley was, after Goreme, the second most important centre of Cappadocian monastic life. Most of its mystic rock churches and monasteries originated between the 9th and 13th centuries. From within this surreal, fissured landscape, unexpected treasures of Christian Byzantine art are to be found. As well as many admirable and well-preserved sacred paintings. The first traces of settlement date back to the Roman Empire. At that time, tombs were built here, this remote location having been the ideal location for them. Later, Christians discovered this remote valley, and finally the Arab general Ghazi conquered the area and most of the churches were destroyed. But soon this was forgotten and church culture enjoyed a new high season, and over the course of subsequent centuries, around 150 churches were built. Some of the churches and cave dwellings were later transformed into stables and pigeonries by the local farmers, a fact well recognized and appreciated today. Construction of the Cappadocia church took place in 1060 AD, a fact confirmed by various inscriptions. It's a large complex with many tombs. Colourful dolls are a popular souvenir and a good reminder of a visit to the valley. Derinkuyu, meaning deep well, is the most famous of the former subterranean cities of Cappadocia. Within these caves and corridors beneath the earth's surface, early Christians survived the hostilities of their enemies. There are around 36 subterranean towns in Cappadocia. Derinkuyu is the most famous. A labyrinth of corridors and chambers, 8 floors deep. A ventilated hideaway with a well. Around 20,000 people found shelter here during troubled times, along with their cattle. Storage rooms, millstones and wine presses indicate that they lived here for some time. Prayer rooms and monastic cells were also discovered here. It's estimated that at the time of the Hittites, long before the early Christians arrived, the first subterranean settlements originated here. Later, the cave systems were enlarged and developed into a complex of tunnels. Finally, 12 floors were constructed beneath the ground. In In a deep and well-sheltered valley is the tiny village of Guzelyurt. This area was first settled in antiquity. Up to 50 Greek Orthodox churches covered this region. This is also the location of the sacred Gregor von Nazianz church. It has been completely renovated and transformed into a splendid mosque. It was once the tomb of Bishop Gregor, whose namesake introduced the Gregorian calendar that transformed the calculation of time. But what are hours, days, months and years? Here, time ticks by tranquilly. No hustle, no bustle. Here there are subterranean cities whose entrances were only discovered quite recently. The Turkish government has since introduced a conservation program for Guzelyurt. So the restoration and reconstruction of the city's old cultural values was recognized and secured, and the future of its antiquities preserved. Nearby, extinct volcanoes. And outside the small village of Ihlara is a mosque that is sheltered by stone-covered slopes. The people here earn their living from agriculture, and there's no hint of tourism. Hardly anything has changed here. But nearby and well hidden is something else to discover, another natural wonder. This is the entrance to the 150-meter deep Ihlara Canyon, a 15-kilometer long canyon that in the 8th century served as a hideaway for Byzantine monks. Deep down in the valley flows the Melendez Suyu River, whose waters carved out rock walls until they eventually collapsed and the canyon was born. A main path leads through the canyon, and further pathways lead to a number of rock churches. The entrance to Kalisi, known as the Fine-Smelling Church, and its magnificent frescoes, is not the original. At first, the church was only accessible by way of a subterranean passageway. Following the course of the river, the wild, romantic beauty of the landscape is a delight. The picturesque contrast of both nature and history in Devrent Vadisi Valley is picture perfect. The river cuts deeper and deeper into the valley and nourishes the surrounding landscape. It is the lifeline of the valley for both plants and wildlife, as it was for those who once settled here. Far away from the big cities of ancient times, the early Christians were able to follow their religious belief undisturbed by the outside world. Visitors walk along historic trails, through a valley that looks like something from prehistoric times and that possesses an atmosphere of mystique. A unique place of worship. Near to Belisama, the narrow canyon opens up, and although the canyon continues, our walk comes to an end here. The people of the village have provided several resting places for walkers on platforms situated in the river. It's a good way in which to attract tourists who would otherwise not visit the village. The modernization of past decades appears to have bypassed Belisama. Daily life here has remained unchanged for generations. The local people live on the edge of the canyon and have adapted their buildings to the landscape. Today, there is no fear of enemy attack. Alas, our journey has come to an end. A journey that has taken us through the history of the rise and fall of early Christianity, which is so closely associated with the geology of this fascinating landscape. A journey into an enchanting world of stone, and to its admirable inhabitants. Cappadocia is a momentous work of art and a truly authentic miracle of nature.